All right, let's go ahead and get back to our guest. Our guest tonight is Dr. Carmen Boulter. Again, Dr. Carmen, thank you so much for taking time out of your weekend to be here with us and talking about your work.
Okay, sure.
We do have somebody on the line. We've got some questions sent in. You want to go ahead and take some questions?
Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Caller, good evening. Welcome to K-Talk. You're on with Dr. Boulter.
Good evening, Pat. Good evening, Dr. Boulter. This is Bill Forte.
Hi, Bill.
Hey. I want to bring up a couple of questions based on the Hawara Labyrinth Egyptian complex. And I know our friend Klaus Dana was involved. Can you speak about how the discovery was made and the type of technology that was used?
Well, that was what I was talking about before the break.
Okay.
And it is high-definition, satellite-based, ground-penetrating radar. And it's state-of-the-art, brand-new technology that not too many people know about and certainly not too many people have access to. And so there was a group that were in Hawara, two groups actually, in 2008, a Belgian team and a Polish team. And they abandoned the project, and then the revolution happened, and they had done the kind of ground-penetrating radar that was on-site laying wires on the ground that went 5, 8, and 12 meters deep. This technology... first of all, they didn't have the satellite coordinates. They had driven to the site. They had the driving instructions. And I had done some work with Google Earth looking for this site before, and so I just went and found some old maps, Flinders Petrie from 1881, and lined it up with Google Earth and looked for 2 days until I found it. And then I got what the coordinates were, and the satellite coordinates, and Klaus called me about 5 minutes later, and I gave him the coordinates, and 2 days later he says, we found something. And so it was the force of the scan from Geoscans, as well as me getting the coordinates and looking for the place for 25 years. And what has been found there is that, first of all, they already knew about the Roman level on top, the Ptolemaic level, Antony and Cleopatra's days, second, but then there's 2 layers that are extremely deep, and they seem to have a different construction. And so in archaeology, older is deeper, and again, until we can excavate, we cannot verify, but it makes for a really good hypothesis, and Klaus, over time, is getting more and more reliability and validity from the scan, because various governments are then going and excavating and finding what they scanned for. So examples of this are they found the entrance to the tunnel system in the Bosnian pyramids through this scan, and now they've been excavating there for 9 years. Is somebody trying to say something?
No, yes. I was going to say you're absolutely correct, because I speak to Klaus on a regular basis, and he mentions about the Bosnian pyramids, and also recently something in the Czech Republic was discovered.
Yes, he was just there. That's correct.
Yes.
And pyramids in Ecuador, and it goes on and on. He's been traveling all over. But he has been very careful with the intellectual property, because it's governments that would say, scan here. They even went looking for California rivers, underground rivers in California, and found 2, one at 160 meters, and they can see the flow rate. And so if you go, and so they found diamond mines in Brunei, gold in Bolivia, a train that they'd been looking for 90 years in Lake Baikal in Siberia. And so lots, very impressive work. And so Klaus knows from being on the team that would travel to the place that you dig and you find. And so there's a device that's even more precise on site that they, travel to. And we know that satellites can be a little off.
Right.
However, as time goes by, this scan is seeming to be, even gaining in strength. And so, as I said earlier, there's a few people who are like, no, I never heard of that, so it doesn't exist. But I'm ready for new technology, and we know that newer is better, stronger, like a 14 megapixel camera as opposed to a 1-2 megapixel camera. Right? You get more information, and this stuff is powerful. And to me, it makes perfect sense. So what's on the scan is 82 chambers, 6 of which are bigger than Olympic-sized swimming pools, on one side of the canal, all of which are bigger than my house. And there's 1.5 kilometers of passageways connecting them, but some of them are not connected to anything, and nothing is connected between the upper layer and the lower level. And the roof of the lower level is more than 130 feet deep. So what are we talking about? Older is deeper in archaeology. So
and what about?
Go ahead.
Is there any water in those chambers? Was that detected?
Well, we did a full scan for water because Flinders Petrie, when he did the excavation in '81, he said that there was water in the pyramid and there's also a canal, and they thought the canal was leaking. And he said, yeah, it's pretty interesting down there, but I don't think anybody should excavate because of the water. Mm-hmm. And so this has been a contentious issue because that's why the place hasn't been excavated, but they never would have known to go that deep anyway. And I call them the puddles because the water is underneath any of the chambers, no matter how deep they are, and there's not that much. I mean, it touches 5 or 6 chambers, but touches the area of 5 or 6 chambers out of a full 82. So the water really shouldn't be an issue.
Now, I also know that Klaus has said that he's working with Valery Uvarov and with the Russian pyramids, of activity in Russia currently, with the building of pyramids that Russia's, and also I spoke with him. He said that there is also pyramids being found in Russia. Are you aware of any of this?
Yes, I worked with Valery Uvarov, so I spoke at the big conference that they had that was based on Dr. Konstantin Korotkov's equipment, the electrophotonic imaging, and he trained me and I got additional training. And I spoke in St. Petersburg, and that's where I met Valery, and he showed me a lot of the equipment that was used to build these pyramids, and it was funded by the largest produce company in Russia, and they wanted a warehouse that they could put food in that would energize the food before it got on the trucks to go get delivered to the people. And, of course, we know that they don't have microwaves there, and people say, oh, they'll catch up one day. No, they're so advanced that they've taken that away because they know it's not healthy. There's no GMOs, and they actually charge the food in a pyramid. So Valery had a lot of years of experience working with the little pyramids that would make medicine stronger, sharpen razor blades, that sort of thing. And I actually saw a lot of this equipment and the photographs of the building of the pyramids. So Val asked me to do a 4-part documentary series, and this place is called Project 12 or The New Atlantis. And so he wrote a book called The Pyramids and, asked me to use that material. And it's got all the technology that went into making these pyramids functional. And it explains the double helix of the quartz under pressure. And they used crushed quartz polymers as the casing stones. And even before the casing stones was on, which is kind of like a fondant icing that would go on the pyramid and then melt into shape, melt into the casing stones. And one of the construction workers had a very serious asthmatic condition, and one day before the pyramid was ever finished, he was in the pyramid, and all of a sudden he started trembling and sweating off one side of his body, and he had quite a dramatic, breathing and shaking kind of episode, and after that he was perfectly fine, and the condition never came back. So he had a spontaneous healing standing in this pyramid before it was finished.
Wow.
So the idea is to build it like Plato's shapes of Atlantis in circles, with the biggest pyramid in the middle, which you can see from Google Earth. It's there. And now they're building 4 around that in an inner circle and 4 around that in an outer circle. But in between are buildings that would be 12 different domains, so transportation, communication, health, education. It goes on, And they have beekeeping, and they even have an orphanage. And this is a really big plan for a model for, I call it, these are my words, a model for an empowered humanity. Like, what do we need? How do we change the paradigm for all these things? And so they're literally building it in the model that Plato stated. Now, a lot of people have found, evidence of the possibility of Atlantis, and apparently they built their cities always the same in the round pattern. And it's almost like the washrooms in airports where you go in and there's a passage and you go around to the left and then you come back out to on the other side. And so the ships, they were a worldwide seafaring culture. And I know this through Gavin Menzies' work, and like all of this in a radio interview, you're not talking about your references and how you know, because there's not enough time to do the who, what, where. But Gavin Menzies, he wrote a whole book about the seafaring culture and the evidence that was shown in the Minoan culture, for example. and speculates that they could have been descendants from the Atlanteans. And so there are these circular-shaped impressions in many places on the planet, and that's part of why Valery Varov is using this as a model.
Yeah, I spoke with Valery a couple of days ago, and he was telling me about the 12 stimulus and the energy, and I was intrigued by what he was telling me. It's really incredible work that all of you are doing. I mean, Klaus, yourself, and Valery. But I wanted to ask you, because Klaus has mentioned to me that the technology that is used can also pick up precious metals, minerals. Mm-hmm. Was anything detected in the chambers underneath the pyramid?
Which pyramid?
That you're aware of?
Which pyramid?
The complex, I mean.
Oh, yeah.
The lab.
Yeah. There's 6 chambers with gold on both levels. So Herodotus talked about it in 450 BC, and he said he got into the upper level, but not the lower level. And there are legends, and there are Strombo, Pliny, other people talked about this, Nathaniel, Kusher. But, they didn't talk to each other because they were like 600 years apart. So it seems that this was a known site. It's a known site now, albeit not excavated. There was excavations done on the Roman level, as I said, and the Ptolemaic level, but not down there. And so I think that it could be that there were groups at really, really distant ages that started with the bottom one, and then they came along tens of thousands of years later and built the second layer, and tens of thousands of years later and built the third, and then the last was the Roman. And they kept coming back and building on top.
So do you believe that these chambers are older than the pyramid themselves that are nearby?
Oh, definitely. The pyramid there is a mud brick pyramid. Now, what we're to understand about Egypt is that the best stuff was earliest, and as we went into, the modern times, things became poorer construction. So pretty much anybody can take a brick that's the size of a regular brick, a mold, and shove, mud into there and wait for it to dry and dump it out and pile it up, because anybody can carry those. And so they call it the weeping pyramid because as rain has fallen on it over the time, I don't know how old, it kind of had rivulets that would kind of melt the mud brick, and so it almost looks more feminine, like it's not so straight-sided. And I mean that by curvy as opposed to just straight-sided. So no, the pyramid is not. The chambers are not below the pyramid. It's a structure that's over beside it. Okay,
and now one more question for you before I go. What is the Egyptian government's response to this discovery? Are they going to allow excavation to be done at the Hawara complex?
Well, apparently it's an exception for, as I said earlier in the show, that no new excavation permits will be granted. So they really wanted to shut all that down, but they were shut down already. Apparently it's possible, though I don't know. I'm making applications, and we'll see what happens. But you would think that they wanted to bring back tourism, and that a site of this scope would be of great interest. But we don't know what the hidden agenda is, and we don't know. There's lots of unknowns. Now, the beauty of what's going on with the scans and Klaus's work, in conjunction with his genius friend in Germany, is that they're able to go to various countries that don't have the same restrictions, that understand that tourism would be facilitated, and that getting the mineral rights will help. Finding water in places like Zimbabwe where they can't find it is helping people survive, and so. Right. The governments are allowing that, so we don't know. It could be.
Because Klaus has told me, Carmen, that when the technology is used on site, it gives a more specific, detailed description of what is below. That's what he had told me. So I'm wondering, did Klaus's friend go to the site itself yet?
No, that would have to be. That would have to be part of a site survey that would go after permits were done, and then that would allow for a borehole to be dug
Yep.
and to see if, in fact, the precision would bring. We would send down a light with an HD camera that would do a 3D scan of the inside of the room, and we could actually look at it. And then the decision to excavate would follow from that. And the sites. Pardon me.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Well, just the site survey would be part of permits to excavate to know where to go and that sort of thing. But that would be that would have to be done by permit.
Right.
Go ahead, Bill.
I just before I let you guys
go.
go.
Fine. You ask away.
I wanted to say, Carmen, I hope that this comes to fruition, because it would be very unfortunate for humanity's sake of this scale of discovery that would not go to be checked out and excavated and see exactly what's there, because it has such potential archaeological, so much. It's so precious. This is so significant. I hope that they allow you to get these permits and do what's needed to see what's going on, what's below. So. Well,
I won't be giving up anytime soon, because I've been looking for it for 25 years, and I sincerely feel that this has very good potential, and I don't think we've ever had access to such powerful technology. And so it stands to reason that maybe something new under the sun could happen. And I have one foot on the shore because, I've been hanging around Egypt for a long time, and I see the difficulty with, getting things like that done. That doesn't mean there can't be, be realistic, plan for a miracle. And so off we go to do our best but the thing is, my interest has been in terms of being a filmmaker, as well as studying archaeology at the graduate level and, being firmly into research at the graduate level as well, teaching people how to do it. I also think it's important to keep the record for humanity and to, film it so that nobody can hide it. And I've been to the site recently, and I did film it, and I see how it all lines up with the scan. And it may be that all we get to do is talk about it virtually, but even so, as other sites are found with Klaus's scan, that increases the validity and the reliability. He's convinced, because he's seen so many things. None of us have seen what he has seen, because this thing is protected intellectual property. But the reason that I'm talking about it is just the fact that I have the scan has generated quite a few people who demand that it's theirs. So 2 weeks ago, Klaus told me the only thing you can do is go public, because you found it.
Carmen, can I ask you? And Bill, you can hang in there. When you find things, Carmen, when you go do when you do your research, when you get the permits and you're granted the research and you go do your work, and other scientists that you work with, does the local government or parliament or whatever you said that governs that area, do they want to review your work when it's done? Do they say, well, do your research, but let us take a look at it before you go public with it?
That was the case with the Pyramid Code. That was the case with the aerial footage. I took a little helicopter, a Gazelle helicopter, and they had to look at the footage. They sent an intelligence officer so that we wouldn't be filming where they had ammunition. There were certain sites. One site we couldn't fly over, and then I had to sit there for 6 hours while they reviewed the footage, and then they sent us on our merry way and approved it.
Is there? Will they let you use drone technology or fly drones around it?
Well, that's never been done before because drones are relatively recent. I definitely had a plan to bring 2 of them, and the thing is if you get the permit to film, everything's individual, and everything's different every time you go, and so and it's a new set of people, but they're really careful. But the thing is it would be still an Egyptian discovery. But left to their own devices without the scan, they wouldn't find it, right? Mm-hmm. And even if they used the scans that were done prior to 2008, they wouldn't have the information. So even if you do needle in a haystack, and I'm announcing that it's really deep, and the area that we're talking about here with the 82 chambers is 81 football fields, you still could dig for a long time and take a lot of sand out and not find anything.
Are the under the when they excavate under the pyramids, Carmen, a lot of these chambers and stuff that they're finding under there, the research that's been done, are things pretty? The way the pyramids were built, are the chambers below intact? Are there bits and pieces of them that you could, I mean, these are great structures that are sitting, I mean, the weight calculation, I can't even imagine. But is what's underneath them intact?
You see, I think I've done 12 interviews now in the last 2 weeks after I went public on this, and people think that you just go there and excavate. Well, you could do that maybe in the Grand Canyon, maybe, but there's never been a proper excavation on the Giza Plateau looking underground. So they've kept and held everybody out over all these years, and so I took it upon myself to go in and out of those the passageways and the holes, and most of them are blocked. I spent a lot of time inside the body of the Sphinx before they did the quote-unquote restoration. And the passageways are blocked, so I know there's a temple of Isis down there, and they paved over this huge area. So it would require like an army of jackhammers enclosing the gate to the plateau and rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat for a couple of weeks or a month. So everything has been done to prevent us from being able to discover this, but too bad, we already know it's down there. Now, all of those passageways are blocked. They're blocked from the top, they're blocked at the side, so that doesn't mean they didn't used to connect, and there's been lots of time for hanky-panky over tens of thousands of years. That doesn't mean when Hakim was a child, which would have been, at this point, probably, 90 years ago, 100 years ago, that he and his friends there was no gate, there was no wall. They would just go up into the Sphinx and play. That was their playground.
Yep.
And so I think we're not too many people have even done as much as I have there, and it's just really rare to do an excavation in Egypt. And as I say, that doesn't mean we won't get to do it, but it's kind of a long shot.
Amazing.
Well, Pat, I'm sorry, Pat. As far as Klaus's technology is concerned, also some question the authenticity of it, and I can tell you, speaking with Klaus, that it's been used with the Bosnian pyramids. It's also been used by Evan and Steve Strong of Australia. They had found with Klaus's technology a tunnel which was discovered that they were looking for, and he found the chamber with this. But the Australian government prevented them from doing further excavation. They ran into a stone wall in the tunnel, and they were not allowed to continue with the excavation. So I can understand exactly what Carmen's saying as far as that. But I can tell you, I definitely believe that Klaus's friend's technology to be valid, credible, and it's been used, like I said, in other instances, which I can't really discuss, but I definitely believe in this technology, and I think that, again, what Carmen is involved with needs to be excavated, and I hope she gets all the permits needed to do so. And Carmen, I wish you the best of luck in the pursuits of what you're doing. I mean, this is breathtaking. It's groundbreaking. It's incredible when you came out with this a few weeks ago. And I look forward to following where this goes, and I wish you the best success in this.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks for your question.
And have a great night, Carmen. And Pat, I'll talk to you soon.
Take care, my friend. Thank you for putting this all together.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Amazing work, Carmen. There's so many subjects we talk about on the program, and I have just scratched the surface with the pyramids. And again, your knowledge is so welcomed, and you're just doing some amazing research. And I hope those walls will come down for you, so you can continue on and learn more and more and more. And like Bill said, be able to bring this to light, so people will understand these things and see these things. Because it sounds like there's a very small group of people that are doing this, a very small group, very dedicated group.
Yes, and as Klaus says to me when he's encouraging me, okay, well, if we can't do it there, there's so much else that they found on the planet that perhaps, the government of Ecuador or Peru, already Bolivia has endorsed his scan, and so he has scanned a number of places that have not been excavated, and he said, well, let's go somewhere else. Yeah. So that's very kind of him. And it's true. If we're piecing together a worldwide puzzle, we get blocked to look in one place, then go somewhere else.
These Russian pyramids that Bill had mentioned, with the state, well, again, as you stated, again, that's a lot of the media. Is there an opportunity for researchers like you and Klaus to get a closer look at some of these other pyramids?
Well, that would be up to Valerie, and I did work with him for a couple of years, and so I do plan for my next series, The New Atlantis, that I've been in production in for a little while, a year and a half at least, to do a shoot in outside of St. Petersburg. Well, this is outside in Siberia, and I've yet to set that up. I'm doing a crowdfunding campaign in order to be able to pay for the finishing of this new series. It's another 5 episodes with the same original score, a new original score, as the Pyramid Code had in the style of the Pyramid Code. And so people are really chomping at the bit to see that is complete. And because I was involved with some media network director and producer, and then they wanted to turn the whole thing into a fantasy, make it all fake, and then they wanted me to illustrate it. What the part that I had written was all real, with real concrete images that go with it. So yeah, I definitely would include, if I can afford to do it, with the amount of money I get from the campaign, do a shoot of this site, have Valerie describe what's going on. But I can still, do it in virtual reality. I already, the logo for the New Atlantis Indiegogo campaign is a diagram that comes from Valerie, and I've made it into an animation already for. You'll see that in the trailer that's attached to the pitch in the Indiegogo campaign. So all of this is part and parcel. I consider that, Klaus and Michael Tillinger in South Africa and Dr. Sam and Valerie and, all of us are in this together. One astonishing thing that I can just add to the conversation here is that I did a trailer for Michael Tillinger. So I went down to South Africa, and then I was filming when we were in Bosnia, and looking in the lab of what they've found in the tunnels of the Bosnian pyramids, and looking at Michael Tillinger's small museum that he has on his property. If you looked at the footage continuously, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference of where you are. So that is mind-boggling, because I've seen the certificate for the carbon-14 dating in Bosnia dating to 38,000 years. So for me, with Angels and Archetypes, an evolutionary map of feminine consciousness, that was tracing goddess-centered cultures and evidence of that meeting pyramid power. And the Bosnian pyramids are very, very definitely a left-handed culture. So they found all these little goddess dolls, or even stones. But if you put them in your right hand, they don't fit. But if you put them in their left hand, they fit. And this speaks to matriarchal culture. Matriarchal culture meets pyramid. Should have seen my jaw dropping down.
I can imagine.
So over time, all this is coming together, and everybody's doing their part. So it's fascinating, totally. And just a couple of days ago, Dr. Sam sent me a video and a paper with photographs that are showing a new find in the tunnels in the Bosnian pyramids. So and then they can record it right there, put it up on YouTube, send it to people that are on the list, And so there's no turning back, and new pyramids are being found. We've got Bosnia, we've got Serbia, there's 3 in Alaska, there's 3 down in Antarctica, there's several in South Africa, and I've flown over several of them, and, we had a helicopter at our disposal there too. And, now they found 3 in Ecuador, there's some in Peru, Corral, Peru. It just goes on. And now the one underneath the Azores, which would no doubt have been where Atlantis would have been, and a pyramid complex. And I just saw a video yesterday, and it looks like the Belt of Orion. Three square structures that are following that pattern. It's like that's all over the world. So even after the flood, they might have gone to places like Nabta Playa or Gilf Kabir, both of which are featured in the Pyramid Code, and started mapping out where the stars are. But it seems like a worldwide unified field. Maybe it's a third-party hypothesis where the Mayans, the ancient Indians, the Egyptians, the Sumerians all speak the same language, had high-level ancestors, ancient ones that told them the same story. Somehow this is all fitting together. And furthermore, in the Bosnian pyramids, there was this thing of unified, a certain kind of writing that looks like glyphs. Well, in my book, I have a set of runes, and I thought I made up the symbols, And they're showing up in Yemen at the Temple of Shiva, the Sabian symbols. They're showing up all over the world, including a plaque. The problem with the fact of the Bosnian pyramid tunnels is they were decommissioned before the flood. And that's true of Göbekli Tepe. They filled it all in with rubble. And that's what they're excavating. They're taking all the rubble out, but as they sift through, they're finding all this stuff. So, including goddess-centered stuff. So I'm there with my camera, with Timothy Moon, who is the head archaeologist for the Bosnian pyramids. And I got the camera rolling, and he says, "Look what I found yesterday." And I've called her Medusa. Well, I've got a chapter in my book about Medusa. There's so much significant, and it's this woman with snake hair painted on. From 38,000 BC, really? I mean, this is really interesting stuff.
Unbelievable stuff.
It's unbelievable. And so for people to say, "Oh, yeah, that scan doesn't work," how do you know? Yeah. Like, what do you know about it? Well, I've never seen it. That is just, I'm sorry, that is just pure arrogance. Yeah. That if I haven't heard about it, it doesn't exist? Really? How long have you been looking for it?
We did get some other questions emailed in. Can I pose these up to you?
Mm-hmm.
Red from the UK writes in and says, how does Dr. Boulter explain the mention that they have yet to find a king buried in the king's chamber? However, he believes they said they have found one queen in a queen's chamber.
No mummies have ever been found in a straight-sided pyramid, ever. And that doesn't stop them from saying that they're tombs. Okay. There's no queen that has been found in the queen's chamber. There is a so-called queen's chamber, a so-called king's chamber. I call it the Great Pyramid, Second Pyramid, Third Pyramid. I won't use the names because I don't think that Cheops, Shephren, whatever they're saying, has anything to do with anything. So, and even if you found a mummy, how do you know if it's a king? So, mostly the practice of mummification started in the 18th dynasty. Well, that was way after 2450 BC. That's 1350 in there. So we don't know how to think in terms of the dates, and so there's never been a mummy of a queen found in the queen's chamber. No, not true.
Okay. Another question is, Carol writes in and says, has Dr. Boulter had a chance to review the recent NASA finding from the New Horizons probe of the 3-mile-high pyramid on dwarf planet Ceres? And if so, what are her thoughts?
No, can you repeat that? The new what?
It's
New Horizon.
The New Horizon probe. It's a 3-mile-high pyramid on dwarf planet Ceres, Ceres.
Oh, Ceres, Ceres.
Ceres. Sorry, it's been a long day.
No, but Sirius would be, ISIS and all that because they track that. No, I'm not aware of this, but honestly, it's more than a full-time job to keep up with everything that's just coming out that's new.
Right.
So thank you to Carol, and I'll investigate that. But, there's pyramids on Mars. But the thing is, we have to be careful because, we're not going to go to Mars and check, and we're not going to go to Ceres and check. And there are people who have looked on Google Earth and said, I found pyramids, and you don't even have to go to Egypt, and you can find a pyramid. And that was all over the news, the mainstream news. And the woman never went. Well, because, I've done a couple of expeditions onto the open desert, you're bobbing along and kind of getting a little sleepy, and then, what's that doing there? You think, is that a pyramid? And you look, because you're right beside it, and it's a pyramid-shaped sand dune. And they're huge, and it really makes you think. Like, how does that work? Like, did the sand dunes come first, or the pyramids, or how does a sand dune end up looking like a pyramid? So you can say that, there's pyramid fields all over the place in the western desert. No, there's pyramid-shaped sand dunes all over, and if you go and look with your own eyes, you'll agree. Right?
Well, and then there's even some photos, that I believe are not photoshopped of some, I've seen some different photos of pyramids below the ocean.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about that. But over long periods of time, apparently Atlantis had 3 different natural catastrophes. And so this happens over and over, and lands change, and continents crack, and things end up on the bottom of the ocean. And so there's something that's so deep off the coast of Cuba that they had to send. You couldn't even go in a scuba diving gear. They had to, have a manless submarine go with a camera to see this stuff because it's so deep. And that's, kind of in the vicinity of the Bermuda Triangle, and there's all these anomalies. And they're like, well, we don't know why it's down there, so it doesn't exist. So it's not real, so your picture's not real. Well, you can't tell me I photoshopped it if I didn't, you know what I mean? So there's all these naysayers. No, that's not possible. And why would it be down so far? Well, don't you think the bottom of the ocean's a good place to look for Atlantis? I do.
Yeah, exactly. Another question from Bob out on the East Coast. He writes in and says, does Dr. Boulter have an opinion on shafts leading to chambers under the Sphinx legs?
Well, I spent a lot of time inside the body of the Sphinx, as I said. Every time I did, I wouldn't sleep for 36 hours after. Or was it more than that? And there's definitely chambers under there. And I was most curious about that. And I don't know why that mattered so much to me. And so, the watchman would let me spend time in there by myself. With somebody, anybody else is standing there in my mind, and it kind of magnifies their consciousness. So I was always looking to be alone in there. And absolutely, there's shafts down there. No question. Sounds
like you've had some magical experiences, if you want to call that, in that piece of the planet.
Well, that's why they say I have an unshakable passion for Egypt. I've been there 29 times and lived there for 2.5 years.
Now, I was looking on your. First of all, we've got about 10 minutes left. Do you want to go ahead and throw out for your funding campaign some information for our listeners, if they'd like to help you out with that? Where can they find out that information?
Well, that's very nice of you. Thank you. And a tremendous show of support in the few days that the campaign's been launched. My goodness. So pyramidcode.com has the link to the crowdfunding. It's Indiegogo, and it's called The New Atlantis, Dr. Carmen Boulter. So they could find it by going on Indiegogo. And that's linked to my homepage. There's not links, but there's the name, the date, and the show of these 12 interviews that I've done in the last couple of weeks describing this site. And so if people are interested, they can find that and then put that into YouTube and see where those shows are. And I'm also going to be leading a tour November 28th to December 6th. I'm invited to be a guest host to Gunung Panang and Borobudur in Indonesia and Java. And those sites, they're said to be, one of them said to be 23,000 years old. And so, and they're not even using thermoluminescent or photoluminescent dating. So, there's more and more of these sites that are showing up, but they haven't been traveled to. So there's information on that on the homepage as well. And the other thing that I'd like people to be aware of is the Modern Knowledge Tour coming across Canada. I spoke at it last year, and wow, what an incredible lineup of people speaking. And so I'll be on stage with Michael Cremo, Nassim Haramein, and Marty Leeds in Vancouver, August 29th, and in Victoria, Canada, August 30th. And so that is going to go across Canada in the weeks before, and that's really something worth catching. So they had a disclosure conference in Vancouver the other day, not long ago, and Paul Hellyer spoke, and it was all about the work that's being done to get disclosure and all the reasons why, even though many, many countries, Argentina, Mexico, UK, goes on, have disclosed their UFO files, the political reasons why the States doesn't want to let that happen. Star Wars, common enemy, now they're ETs, we can't have the free energy, and all the ways that we're being held back by these secrets. And so it stands to reason that, it would still be a secretive environment, but, because of, virtual reality, the reliability of the scan, we can make animations to still tell this story. So it's all coming together. I think it's too late to put the genie back in the bottle.
Without a doubt. Where can our listeners, now you have a book out, you want to talk about your book a little bit and where our listeners can get that?
You can contact me from my website. I have the end of the run. I'm just about to put out, I've got a whole new set of art and cards. It's called Angels and Archetypes, an evolutionary map of feminine consciousness. And so it's 22 archetypes, which is an energy, whether you know about it or not, is still operating. It's based on astrology, numerology, and tarot, which is all the ancient Egyptian teachings, looking at goddesses from around the world. So 4 of them are Egyptian, 7 are Greek, and the rest are from around the world. And so it's a set of cards and a set of runes, and it's an oracle, if you will. It's a way that you can get information about yourself and read through. So I have the end of the run. If anybody's interested in that, they can just email me, and my email's connected on my website.
Well, that sounds great. That's again, your work is amazing, and I hope that I just hope that everything goes well for you, so that again you can bring out this information and let the people of the world see it. No sense. It doesn't need to be hidden. People need to know about. People need to know about these things.
Well, and I can still talk about it without the excavation. I mean, of course, it's preferable if you can go there, but if they don't let us, they're still not going to stop us from knowing about it.
Right. No, that's very true. It's again, it's amazing. I've just started digging into the whole pyramid subject, and of course, my friend Bill is the one that said I need to get Carmen on the program, and I want to thank him again. Carmen, I want to thank you so much for being here tonight and taking time out of your weekend, and I wish you the best. It was an honor to talk with you, and I would love to have you back on the show again down the road and talk more. And again, this is just a fascinating subject, and it's so ever expanding. It's just it's like its tentacles. It reaches out in so many different directions.
Thank you so much for having me.
Have a great weekend and take care, and good luck. The best of luck to you, and the best of luck to you on your campaign.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Good night.